Good morning and welcome to another chat from the Geelong Community Foundation. And this time our special guest is our fantastic Treasurer Lachie McColl. So welcome Lachie, and thanks for coming along to just share a bit about that dry subject, the numbers of what's going on at the Foundation.
Thanks for having me, Tony. We'll try and keep it short and sharp, will we then?
Good man. So donations in the last 12 months. Do you want to give us a little bit of an overview about how that's gone?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose we're talking about numbers to financial year end, so 30 June, and 30 June 20 is the one we're talking about at the moment. That's our last financial year just ended.
Yep.
So if you think about what happened in the last few months leading up to that end of the year, we all had COVID restrictions kick in, and that's obviously slowed us all down and maybe had to think about where our money should be and what our priorities are. So in terms of the numbers, we're actually up on last year in donations by more than $130,000. So our donations in were about $630,000 in round numbers,
yep,
and about $500,000 last year. So in light of what happened, that is a tremendous effort. And obviously you need to take some of the credit for that, Tony.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, look, it's obviously great to see we had 15 new donors and about 50 of our existing donors topped up their sub fund. So that was a really great way of explaining or sharing how our model works, where it's a combination of the new as well as the existing topping up their accounts that helps us to be continue to be relevant, particularly in the current times.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably in addition to what you've just mentioned, it's also the P500 group, the Philanthropy 500, which is a newer addition, I suppose, to the Geelong Community Foundation and how it operates. And similarly, that had a tremendous effort this year, and we probably weren't expecting to get close to what happened last year, but a lot of work done by the P500 committee to get them across the line. And recently in the last week or so we've just announced that grant out of that process, so yeah, donations work beautifully in that little group. Congratulations to all of them.
Very pleasing outcome, correct. On the investment side of things, we've kind of held our own, all things considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar sort of story to the donations, that who knows what would have happened to stock markets when all the COVID restrictions kicked in, not just in Australia, but around the world. So probably taking a step back from that, Tony, we've got about 24, at the end of the year, we had about $26 million in round terms in funds under management, and they're managed by JB Weir, who've been looking after us for a number of years. And what they do is, in turn, they take that money and they're investing it in a whole bunch of different asset classes. So we're around about 70% in growth assets, being Australian shares and international shares, about 50-50,
yep,
as well as some fixed income and a little bit of cash left over. So to kind of go back to your question, we probably thought, and I'm sure JB Weir thought, that there was going to be some pretty volatile stock markets, and we've seen that a little bit over the journey of the last few months. So in order to keep our head roughly the same year on year, it's actually a pretty good effort.
Yeah, no, I have to echo that, and yeah, it's in very trying times. It's nice to see that our model is standing up to it. In terms of grant making, been some good outcomes there too.
Yeah, so the grant making really comes off the back of our investment, our funds under management with JB Weir. So if you look at our income out of those funds, was around about $1 million in terms of dividends and interest and other things across that investment portfolio. So what that then means is, really in turn, we've been able to make, or we've been able to reach the $1 million mark in grant making in 2020, which is unbelievable. Again, given the equity market volatility and given everything else going on, particularly locally in Geelong and with COVID restrictions, very happy to be reporting $1 million grant making, or just over $1 million.
Well, you're lucky, and we probably might mention a special person who's been supporting the foundation for a number of years.
Yeah, a number of years. So probably not fair for me to take any of the credit for being treasurer and any of the numbers that are in our annual report for anyone that's looking at those. Katie Terpstra has been our long-standing bookkeeper behind the scenes. Many of you probably know Katie, but she's been around for at least 12 years from what I can work out. And she works behind the scenes, and you know, she loves Geelong Community Foundation. She does a tremendous job. We wouldn't be where we are without her, and I certainly couldn't be treasurer without her support.
Yeah, well said, Lachie. And supporters like Katie who volunteer their time are an important part of the way that the foundation does operate to keep our overheads and administrative costs as low as possible. So thank you, Katie. And many thanks to you, Lachie, for being a great treasurer in the role, and also deputy chair, I might add. So you wear two hats, and you're looking pretty good having survived a board meeting this morning. So thanks for today's chat, and always good to see you, and all the best.
Anytime, Tony. Thanks for having me.